my dang on him movie review. Computer died. Then was so sick when it came back on. They talking about reconnected to the stream, and they gonna start the timer up exactly where the computer died, basically, right? And I finished the stream, and then I go on YouTube, and that mug got clipped, bro. That mug got clipped. But I would still get on here and give my closing sentiments. I repeat some of the stuff I made because I made a lot of good points that I want to hammer in on. But it died when I was talking about how in a lot of these spaces, in a lot of these hyper masculine spaces where the men is supposed to be, you know, in peak physical form, again, peak testosterone, peak masculinity, whatever you want to call it, these guys often end up still dabbling into, dealing with each other. And I was saying how, that comes from, when you look at the sports industry and everything like that, you got to think those are our modern day Roman Colosseums. And, in those times in the Roman wars and all of that type of stuff, Roman empires or whatever, you got your movies like 300 and different things like that. The Spartans, a lot of the times those guys believe in this concept where if you sit up there and lay down and deal with your fellow man, you'll fight harder for them, out on the battlefield because your relationship now is deeper than just this is your partner. This is like, or your squad mate or whatever. This is now your lover. So you're gonna fight harder for your lover. So that's why they kind of put indoctrinate them with a lot of that, with a lot of homosexual activity, because it's supposed to bring something else out of them when they are essentially, out on the battlefield. And another thing with that is I was saying, when you sit up there and cross over into those realms, when you cross over into those fields where you dealing with other men and you getting you know, pegged and you getting stuff like that, like put inside of you, bro, that completely changes your brain chemistry. It completely changes yo yo your mind when you dabble into those type of practices, and the devil know that. So you become easier to control at that point once you've given up your masculinity and you've become submissive on that level. You become way easier to control. So that's why a lot of the times in the Hollywood industry, you see people talking about, your ditties. You see people talking about, freaky stuff like that, where they say, like, why is the devil always linked with, men and being gay? Because the Most High describes that in the scriptures as an abomination. Like, that's one of the most frowned upon things in the Most High's eyes, and the devil know that. So if he could sit up there and get as many people as possible on that time and then pull them away from their masculinity, then that's a W. And what better way to do it than to target, you know, the Most High's, gifted warriors, the people who can jump high out the gym, sit up there and run super fast speeds and all of that type of stuff. All of those people would be useful in the Most High's kingdom. But to counteract that, Satan is recruiting those people and bringing them into his kingdom, and in the vein of sports and everything like that. But another thing that I wanted to mention with the came to the him movie, and this is probably my biggest gripe with the whole movie, was the ending. Pretty much, I felt like the ending was designed just so it could kind of like not necessarily brainwash, but keep people inside of that philosophy or that mentality of um the mentality of, oh, it's just a movie. They'll say, oh, it's just a movie, and they bringing you back into the fact that it's entertainment. The main parts that I say that had my interest, and I'm sure that's gonna have a lot of people interest, is the parts where it's showing what's going on behind the scenes in these industries, right? And they kind of had to balance it out by just putting this complete 360 left turn. I didn't even say plot twist. It was almost kind of predictable the way it happened, but you just still wouldn't have expected it to happen that way. And I'm speaking about, Cade basically not deciding to essentially sign the contract and sign his soul away or whatever. And the thing with that, what made it kind of weird to me, or why I didn't really like it, was because I didn't think that it was enough content of him having that internal conflict on, man, I shouldn't be doing this, or this is getting kind of weird, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. He was pretty much kind of mindlessly buying into everything that they was selling, everything they was putting down, he was picking it up. He was sitting up there damn near killing people. He did everything. He killed Isaiah. It was like, at this point, you might as well sign. You did everything. And he didn't end up going through with it. He actually ended up just turned into a superhero of some sorts, and he just started slaying everybody. He just started slicing everybody up. So that just was kind of crazy to me. But it seemed like Jordan Peele movies always have multiple endings. I don't believe that that was the ending he probably wanted to go with. The more realistic endings usually end up being the alternate ending. If you look at a movie like Get Out, Get Out had the ending where, when the police pulled up, it wasn't the friend that got out the car. It was real police cars, and they actually arrested him and took him to jail because, how do you explain these dead white people and you just bloody walking in the middle of nowhere? That's you getting locked up, buddy. It's kind of no explaining it. But yeah, and in this movie, it's kind of the same thing. I'd imagine the original ending was probably, him actually just signing the contract and then going on to go into the league, become the next Isaiah White, become the GOAT, all of that type of stuff. Because if you look at it as how it is, it's like, how you gonna explain slicing up the all of the owners of this football company and the death of Isaiah White? Like, how do y'all explain all of that? So they kind of knew to end the movie right there after he sliced them up and walked away. He talking about no guts, no glory. He had like a little cheesy line. It just the ending was just kind of cheesy. Like the ending almost pulled me out of it. Not even almost, it did. The movie really took a hit off of that ending for me personally. Like I was cool. I was enjoying it all the way into the end. It was like the ending just was like, what? Like what? No, this is not what we doing. And it really was what we end up doing. So yeah, man, that ending was something else. That ending was crazy. But I want to talk about the long walk again too, and tie in the last thing that I end up saying in the deleted footage. But a message that I really got, from both movies. I watched both movies the same day with the Long Walk and him, and I definitely recommend anybody who haven't seen the Long Walk, check out the Long Walk. I actually messed with that movie more than him. But thing with the Long Walk and with him and what they got in common is really just shining a light on the fact that you can only serve one or two masters. I believe that was Matthew chapter 6 verse 26 or 25 or 26, I'm not sure. But it basically talks about that scripture basically talks about how you can only serve one or two masters because you're either gonna love one and despite and hate the other, or you're gonna cater to this one and despise the other. And it shows that in this world where the devil has control over the whole world, and obviously the Most High has control over the devil. He controls the light and the dark. But the scriptures also say that the world has been given unto the wicked. The world has been given unto Satan, essentially. So Satan has a lock on all of this stuff. And if you're not raising your kids up, if you're not raising them to be um, following the Most High, you're not raising them in the law, statutes, and commandments, you're not raising them in line upon line, precept upon precept, then your kids is gonna go to devil daycare, and Satan is gonna raise them, and he's gonna have them doing any and everything for whatever, to chase the rudiments of this world, to chase validation, to chase whatever. They're gonna be constantly chasing and trying to find things to put into this hole, because if they don't got the Most High, the hole is never gonna get filled. The Most High is the only thing that's gonna be capable of filling up that hole. and filling up that void. So without them, it's just people throwing constant things in it and trying to fill it up. But the thing with the long walk was you had a bunch of young men. You had a bunch of young men in the long walk who essentially just had no direction. Like the concept of the long walk, and well, this is without spoiling it. This is kind of all the promotional material. It's this military event going on, and these young men, they all gathered around for this event, and they pretty much got to walk or die. It's only gonna be one winner. Everybody else got to die, and you walk. As soon as you stop walking, they give you a warning. They give you too many warnings, you get popped. That's how it go. So, essentially, with that movie is like, as I'm watching it and watching this unfold, I'm like, bro, how could they even sign up to do something like this? Like, you sat up there. How did you wind up walking for your life for America? Like, it just didn't never made sense to me. I'm like, who would do such a thing? But it's really, again, and I think that's based on a true story. It's really just people who are lost and have no direction, bro. When a lot of the people, this ain't no disrespect to the veterans and anything like that, but most of the time, you talk to these veterans or whatever, and then you ask them why, how did you end up going to the military? These is just men with no direction. These is men who didn't have a way. They was lost. They didn't know which way to go, and they wound up in the military. And even with it comes to him or these athletes, these people have no direction. They don't know what to do. They be like, oh well, I guess I can jump high. I guess I can shoot a ball and run fast. So it's like they wind up in these sports industries where now that you fighting for your soul and you fighting for your life, just in the name of nothing, just in the name of you not having no direction, you not having no guidance, you not having nobody to put you on what you really need to be put on, right? And that's a real epidemic when it comes to the men these days. Like, our men just don't be knowing what to do. They don't be having no guidance, no direction, and they wind up in the streets, wind up in this industry, wind up in that industry, wind up here, there, all abroad, just because you ain't have nobody to show you. You ain't had nobody to show you the way. And it's a lot of people who come into that, who it's a lot of men who get out of that. You don't have a way, you don't know which way to go and all of that type of stuff, but then you end up finding the scriptures and you end up finding the most high. And you be like, okay, this is the way. This is what I've been needing the whole time. What's the deal? What's the deal? You're like, okay, this is what I've been needing the whole time. But outside of that, again, you can only serve one or two masters. You can either serve one or two masters. If you're not following the Most High, you're gonna end up following the devil. You don't even really you don't get to choose. So anybody, again, when you get to talking, and that goes into the scriptures where it talks about not fellowshipping with the light and the dark. Is what business do the light have fellowshipping with the darkness? None. Because evil communication corrupts good manners, and inevitably, even if you call yourself being on the righteous side, if you're not really following the scriptures, you're not really abiding by that, and you fellowship in light with darkness, you susceptible to be corrupted. So again, it goes deep though. It goes deep. But a lot of men in modern times, is lost. It's lost and lack direction. And if you haven't seen The Long Walk, I definitely recommend seeing that. I recommend seeing that over him. I'm not gonna lie, because The Long Walk, even though The Long Walk is kind of like him in a sense to where you kind of know how the story is gonna go if you see the trailer. I feel like the journey on The Long Walk and the payoff made more sense than the journey in him and that payoff. But both movies is movies I'd recommend going to see. Both movies I recommend going to see most definitely. And they both hit on that concept of they both hit on the concept of men. not really knowing what to do and finding themselves in a crazy scenario because of it. So, that's pretty much it though. I had to get on here and conclude this video. If you haven't seen the first part of the review, that's on the channel. Again, my computer died, so I had to get on here and, kind of reiterate some of the stuff I was saying. But yeah, man, that's the video, man. Shout out to everybody that tapped in. More content on the way. I might come back on tonight and look at some stuff now that I'm kind of setting my stuff back up. We can get active. But that's the video.